Hey y'all, hey, it's Anne Marie, Ball Will Travel. You've been asking me about my experiences traveling in Africa, where I felt the most welcomed and where I didn't. So let's get into that topic. So far, I've been to Accra, Ghana, Dakar, Senegal, Mauritius, Cape Town, South Africa, Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, Nairobi, Kenya, Dar es Salaam, and Zanzibar, Tanzania, and I've also spent time in North Africa, in Tunisia, and Egypt. I still have much more of the continent that I would like to see, but today I want to share my thoughts on the places I've already visited. First, I want to say this. The continent of Africa is where us Black folk, most of us, come from. So my experience traveling there has been very different in many ways than my experiences traveling in Europe, Asia, the US, anywhere else besides Africa. Now, many African countries are less developed in terms of infrastructure, especially outside the big cities. But for me, that's part of the charm. It's the same thing I love about Ireland. Rolling hills, green spaces, animals crossing the road. In Africa, it might be cows, goats, sheep, or it might be zebras and elephants or lions. If you're near the national parks, you might see that. And that's part of the magic of being on the continent. And let me be clear, nowhere in Africa have I ever experienced the kind of blatant racism and disrespect that I faced in the United States or Europe. That's very important for me to say up front. But first, I'm Anne Marie. This is Bald Girl Will Travel. On this channel, I like to talk about style, fashion, travel, not necessarily in that order. I believe that style has no expiration date and that travel is the best self-care that there is. So if you agree and that's of interest to you, please hit that like button, subscribe, comment, but do so constructively, and do hit that notification bell so you never miss a video when it drops. Now let's get into it. So I talked about North Africa and specifically Tunisia in a previous video, but I'm just going to reiterate, that is one of the places that I did not feel safe traveling solo as a Black woman. And I do not recommend going there unless you're with an organized group, and I would not return there unless I was with an organized group. Egypt, I enjoyed Egypt immensely. I visited Cairo, Luxor, and Aswan. The place I liked the least was Cairo. While it is necessary to go there to visit the Egyptian Museum and the Great Pyramids, which I highly recommend, the city itself had a vibe that I didn't necessarily care for. I would not return to Cairo solo under any circumstances. I do think that when you are there, you should be in a group, and I feel like in an organized, vetted group. On the other hand, I absolutely loved Luxor, the temples, the history, everything about it. I felt safe there, as the same in Aswan. Especially, I enjoyed visiting the Nubian village. Those experiences really made the trip to Egypt worthwhile. But overall, I recommend that Black women visit Egypt with a vetted group, not solo. Sub-Saharan Africans are not always treated well in North Africa, and as Black Americans, we are often perceived to be the same as Sub-Saharan Africans, so be cautious. Now, let's talk about the place where I felt least welcomed on the African continent, and that would be the country of Mauritius. Mauritius is a beautiful country, but the population there is not primarily Sub-Saharan African. Most of the people are of South Asian, Indian descent. There are also Creole and Franco-Mauritian communities, but Indo-Mauritians are the majority. It's a former French colony later taken over by the British before independence. And today you see a lot of European tourists, and in my experience, there's a clear preference shown towards the European tourist. When I arrived in Mauritius, I was racially profiled at the airport. While exiting baggage claim, I and other people who were visibly Black, Sub-Saharan African descent were singled out and stopped for questioning. White travelers walked straight through without being bothered or asked any questions. As I was exiting baggage claim, an officer stopped me and asked me all kinds of unnecessary questions about why I was in the country while ignoring the white tourist. As soon as I started speaking with my American accent, his whole attitude changed. He quickly wrapped up his questions, tried to be polite because I was obviously annoyed, and even wished me a good stay. But the damage was done. I will say, once I was in the country of Mauritius, the people I encountered were nice enough and welcoming. But that initial airport experience overshadowed everything else, and it left me, frankly, offended, I felt singled out, and I am uninterested in ever returning to the country. So while Mauritius may be beautiful, for me it was the least welcoming place I've visited in Africa. Now, my absolute favorite country so far on the continent of Africa, Zanzibar, Tanzania. Zanzibar, hands down, is my favorite. To me, it is the most beautiful place on the face of the earth that I've ever seen with my own eyes. The turquoise water to the white sand of Nongwi, the sunsets that are breathtaking. Everywhere you look feels like a postcard. But what really made Zanzibar special for me is the people. They are some of the friendliest, kindest, most welcoming people I've met anywhere in the world. Even though the country is devoutly Muslim, I found the people there to be extremely open and tolerant and welcoming. As a solo Black woman traveler, I felt safe throughout the time that I was there, and I was treated with respect. On my very first stay in 2023, I stayed at a small boutique hotel in Matemwe owned by some Polish transplants, and I was treated so kindly and warmly throughout my stay. I went dolphin chasing early in the morning, and I saw dolphins for the first time in the ocean. It was a singular, perfect moment in my life. I also visited Stone Town, which is the capital of Zanzibar. It's a UNESCO designated city. It is full of history and charm. And then I spent time on the gorgeous white sand beaches of Nongwi. The entire experience was a solid 10 out of 10. In 2024, I loved it so much that I went back with a group of Black women over age 40, and we had a time. We had a wonderful time. We enjoyed the food, the hospitality, the beaches, and the sense of community you feel while you're there. I also went over to the mainland of Tanzania for safari in Mikumi National Park, and that too was an incredible experience. Seeing wildlife in the natural habitat was just wonderful. For me, Zanzibar isn't just beautiful, it's welcoming, it's safe, it's special. I highly, highly recommend a visit. It is my favorite place so far in Africa. Other places that I really enjoyed in Africa, Senegal. I visited Dakar. I absolutely loved Dakar, Senegal. The people, the food, the culture, everything. The Senegalese people were kind, generous, and welcoming, and I would absolutely go back in a heartbeat. In Senegal, as well as other parts of the continent of Africa, I will say that the people I've had the most issues dealing with were not local people, it was white Europeans. Too often they come into African countries and behave as if they own the place. In Senegal, for example, I was sharing a balcony lounge area with some Europeans, and some of them got out of line, and I had to put them right back in their place because I don't play, especially not on the continent of Africa. I also got to witness firsthand how some of the Europeans and others were not always respectful of local people, and I had some frank conversations with local people about development projects in Dakar that were leading to displacement and gentrification, and how locals really felt about those changes. But beyond that, I had a wonderful time in Senegal, and let me tell you, the best food I have eaten so far on the entire continent was definitely in Dakar, Senegal. I had a fish dish in Dakar that I still dream about at night. The food, the music, the culture, and the people made Senegal truly an unforgettable experience for me. Highly, highly recommend. Now, some other countries that I visited and what I thought of them. I've been to Nairobi, Kenya. Nairobi is one of my favorite cities in Africa. I've been there multiple times. And I've been there for work, I've been there for leisure, and each time I was treated well and looked out for, especially as a solo traveler. Yes, I did notice moments where locals seemed to give preferential treatment to white Europeans, and I think that's often tied to economic perceptions, the belief that white people have money and will spend more money if you are super officious with them. But overall, Nairobi is vibrant, welcoming, and full of life, and I was treated really, really well there. I recently visited this year Cape Town, South Africa for the first time. It was my first time in South Africa. Cape Town is breathtakingly beautiful. The mountains, the ocean, it is stunning. The Black South Africans I met were some of the warmest, friendliest people, and I honestly think Black Americans have a lot in common with them. But I cannot ignore the colonialist history that still shows up. You'll notice many of the guests at high-end places are white, while the staff is mostly Black. And Cape Town in particular is still very much occupied by the Dutch colonizers, who now call themselves Afrikaners, but I call them Dutch colonizers. You will feel that presence everywhere you go, especially when you go into wine country. Still, I would definitely go back, and I would love to go back and visit Johannesburg, and I want to go to Botswana on my next trip. I also visited Zimbabwe on the tail end of my visit to South Africa. I went to see the Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it was an amazing experience. Zimbabwe was an unexpected gem. I stayed at a wonderful hotel. I met some really lovely people, and I felt totally at ease the entire time that I was there. The country is beautiful, and the waterfalls are awe-inspiring. Highly recommend it. I also saw hippopotamuses with their open mouths sailing down the Zambezi River, which is an experience I will absolutely never, ever forget. If you are in South Africa, you owe it to yourself to make a side trip to Zimbabwe. I've also been to Accra, Ghana. I've been there twice, I think, at this point. I enjoyed Ghana. It's a special place for many African Americans. The history, the people, the warmth. It's worth visiting. Definitely wasn't my favorite place of all the places I've been in Africa so far, but it's definitely worth checking out for yourself. I personally do not recommend Dirty December. I think it would be better to go at a different time when it's less crowded, but that's just my opinion. So in summary, here are the takeaways. Besides Mauritius and Tunisia, I have genuinely felt safe and welcomed everywhere I have traveled on the continent of Africa. The hospitality, the way people look out for you, the sense of being at home, it's real. From the time you land in most countries and they say welcome home, it really hits a place in my heart every single time. That being said, colonialism has left its mark on the continent, and sometimes you'll notice preferences shown to Europeans or assumptions about who has money and who doesn't. But don't let that discourage you from visiting the continent. If you're planning to visit Africa, I recommend traveling regionally rather than just going to one country. Africa is huge, and it's expensive to get there and to get around the continent. So make the most of your visit. If you're in West Africa, try to hit Ghana, Senegal, and Nigeria in the same trip if you can. If you're in East Africa, pair Kenya with Tanzania and maybe even add in Uganda. If you're in Southern Africa, visit South Africa, but also try to do Zimbabwe, Botswana, or Zambia as well. For North Africa, Egypt is worth it, and Morocco is right there as well. But go with a vetted group and go on vetted excursions. Wherever you go, you're going to find beauty, culture, and connection. For me, the continent of Africa has been a place of warmth and welcome, and I think every Black person should make that trip at least once in their lifetime, if not more than once if you can. And one last thing, whether you're traveling solo or with a group, I still recommend following common sense travel security protocols. That's why I wrote my travel security guide, which I'll link in the description of this video. Whether solo or not, follow your heart, but take your brain with you when you travel, and always have a plan for keeping yourself and your belongings safe and secure. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to hit the like button, comment, but do so constructively, subscribe, share this video with a friend, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss when another video drops. This is Anne Marie. This is Bald Girl Will Travel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.